Now I'd love to visit everyone's land out there and help them out. And of course, it's not possible. I don't have enough days in the year as it is to visit all the clients that contact us. And of course, it's a lot of money. I understand that, to have me come out for the day. So I fully understand that, I can't go to everyone's property, but on YouTube, on Google articles, on my website, I feel like I can help tens of thousands of food plotters, habitat managers, hunters, whitetail hunters, have a greater impact on their success this fall. And that's really what I want to try to do for you. And along those lines, a lot of people ask me, what's your first step in looking at a property and a design? Where do you start? Where do you look? It can seem so confusing. And over the years, and looking at parcels for a long time, having a lot of experience doing this, there's a basic set of concepts that I look at in my head on a land that when I'm making assessments of balance, for example, a property in northern Minnesota with big hardwoods versus a property in northern Ohio with hardly any woods or cover to speak of for 2 miles in any direction, then although the concepts are the same, the balances of those concepts are not. The same patterns exist. It's no different scouting on public land in one location, a big mixed ag area with little public land chunks in it, versus a big open wilderness section in southern Ohio or northern Minnesota. The concepts are the same. The balance of size, how far the deer move, how they relate to each other on a balance and scale is greatly different. People ask me again, what are your first steps? What do you look for? And often I relate this back to a house. You're building a house. Of course, you have to have, a lot of people in the deer world, and just use this real quick, this example, people start on the buck bedding areas when they haven't put the foundation in, the walls, the interior electrical, plumbing, the mechanicals. They haven't laid out the house in any way, how it flows. They're just sticking a bedding area in. And that, in a house analogy, that's kind of what a lot of people do on whitetail properties. With a house, to me, it all boils down to the kitchen. So you have the kitchen establishes. Where the kitchen is in the house establishes where the garage is, because you don't want to have the kitchen at the other end of the house. I appraised houses, real estate appraisals for 11 years. I had my own business, up to 700 homes in 1 year. So I appraised a lot of homes, and this is how we'd look at it. But the kitchen establishes where the garage goes, because you don't want to bring your groceries in all the way across the house to the kitchen once you get in the house. That's a good flow. Once you have the kitchen established, where the dining room is, of course. Where the dining room and kitchen usually establishes where the living room is, or family room, a great room. From there, you establish the houses. Do you want a house, or the bedrooms? You want a bedroom on one side of the house for the parents, adults, or and then you want a couple other bedrooms on the other side for the kids. You want a bathroom over there, maybe a master bedroom and bath on this side. That establishes the hallways. That establishes the flow of the home. And that's how you put a home together, where you establish the flow. To me, it all starts with the kitchen. Again, that establishes the garage, dining room, living room, bedrooms, hallways, bathrooms. You work out from there, and then of course you protect it with those walls of protection. Deer property is not that much different. To me, it all starts with food on private land. Now, it also starts with food in bedding areas on public land, but that's a little bit different discussion. In a private land, you're trying to pack 2 miles worth of hunting land on a public land into a 100-acre parcel on private. So a lot different. You're really micromanaging when it comes to it. Starting with food, that food establishes where doe bedding is, and you want to match that to the balance of the habitat and the type of bedding that the does and fawns are using in your region, not someone else's region. And so you establish food, then doe bedding. You want screening between food and that doe bedding. That'll bring those does closer to that food. You're trying to compact this movement, again, micromanaging on a small parcel. And the more you can free up space by putting does against food, especially if it's a linear food source, if you have multiple food sources, then that leaves a lot of cover left over for bucks. A lot of people, again, start with those buck bedding areas, and they don't have the food, they don't have the layer of screening, they don't have the doe bedding. Well, then they're not going to have buck bedding. And so, just like in a house where you have to establish that flow, once you have the food, the screening, the doe bedding, the buck bedding, now you can utilize travel corridors that match the lay of the land, the natural flow of the land, the natural deer movements of the land, You have those travel corridors. Now you can add water holes and mock scrapes where appropriate on the land. Then you can add your tree stands. And then finally, because you've created this definition of movement on the entire parcel with the natural flow of the land, you've basically created a deer house on your land. Then you can actually then establish the access. You can establish the hunting program on your land. But you first have to define the movement, no different than if you're on public land and you're defining that movement first over a large scale, boots on the ground. You're not creating it, of course. And then you're using these same concepts of hunting, perpendicular access to tree stands, hunting like a predator, making sure you have morning stands closer to bedding areas, evening stands closer to food sources, intermediate cruising stands during the middle of the day that might be on a water hole, mock scrape combination on travel corridors. But again, in a house, to me, builders will disagree, but starts with a kitchen that actually establishes the flow of the home. On private land, a food plot establishes that daily movement. It also establishes the bedding. Once you have everything established, whether eating and sleeping, then you can establish highly where they travel. That sets up stand locations. Once your stand locations are set up, now you define your access after the deer movement's been defined. And it all starts from working out in those points and building that deer home on a small parcel. And if you follow those factors logically, you can start to put that puzzle in your head. If you just start looking at, boy, in the old school, and still, unfortunately, some people still use the school. This is a great field, so let's use it for native grass planting or a food plot. This is a great place for a water hole because it's low and there's flowage, and we can build a small pond there. This is a great tree to put your tree stand in because there's a lot of branches. This is great soil, so let's put a food plot in that location. You never match totally your improvements to the best soil, the best spot for a water hole, the best spot for native grass planting. Instead, the perfect spot is where it flows within the natural lay of the land, something that you could provide an adequate improvement in. And once you have those pieces together, watch out, you follow those steps, you can create a golden opportunity to not only have a great hunt this season, but actually create a quality herd based on quality habitat that gives you a reasonable and good chance and good potential of success this fall in the whitetail woods.